Chapter 1888, The Knight's Final Blow. King Arthur launched his knight's final attack against Zhang Yi. The charge of the fearless can destroy everything and conquer everything.
Just like his favorite saying.
I came, I saw, I conquered. According to the rules of Knight Duel, Zhang Yi cannot dodge his opponent's attack and can only block it in his own way. Just like back in the days of pistol duels, when your opponent fired a gun, you could only pray that his bullet didn't kill you instead of running away like a coward. The war horse was galloping, its speed getting faster and faster. King Arthur let out a loud and high-pitched war cry, and endless strong winds surrounded him. At this moment, King Arthur seemed to no longer be a person alone. It seemed that there were thousands of troops beside him, launching an extremely powerful charge with him. Zhang Yi's pupils gradually dilated, and he finally felt the oppression. Without the most powerful dimensional gate defense, he was not sure he could block such an attack head-on. Even if he blocked it, the huge impact force might destroy his internal organs. At that time, he had no choice but to admit defeat. King Arthur didn't know Zhang Yi well enough. As long as his dimensional door was sealed, most of Zhang Yi's methods would be sealed. He couldn't even take out various props to fight and could only rely on his own weapons. The knight's tall horse came in front of Zhang Yi in an instant, blocking the sunlight in front of him. King Arthur, who came with the light, pointed the lance at Zhang Yi's chest. He did not need to exert any strength. As long as he took advantage of the momentum of the charge, the lance would hit Zhang Yi's chest. Knights versus infantry. King Arthur could imagine the scene of Zhang Yi being stabbed in the chest by a lance and then knocked away. Damn it! Zhang Yi gritted his teeth, with strong resentment bursting out of his eyes. That was not the unwillingness of a loser, but a look of heartache. The mechanical civilization has a technology that Liu Karen has not yet fully understood. That's how those red energy crystals are made. Actually, it's not that I don't want to figure it out. But even if we figure it out, do we really have to spend huge amounts of energy to make this thing? This is how Liu Karen explained to Zhang Yi. The mechanical civilization spent an entire era and the power of a super civilization to create these demon machines. Energy crystals are the core that supplies them for operation. These things are too precious. With the resources we currently have, we can't afford such consumption. Tianhai City has too many projects that require energy supply, and it is impossible to waste like this. Therefore, the red energy crystal in Zhang Yi's hand, the kind that can be overclocked to burst power, will become less and less if it is used. Zhang Yi didn't want to waste time here. But now, there is no need to do without it. When the lance poked towards Zhang Yi's chest, the core furnace area of his demon armor was filled with 8 red energy crystals, which were evenly embedded in the energy slots. The light of one of them became brighter, like a ball of red fire, and this tremendous energy instantly poured into every part of the armor along the armor's energy transmission channels. The pitch-black armor was dyed red, as if it was burned by fire. The sea water evaporates into white mist due to the temperature generated by the instantaneous high energy. Zhang Yi thrust the magic knife fiercely under his feet. You can try to break through my defense. The scarlet magic knife was inserted into the sea. Plain and unpretentious, the huge amount of energy formed a red light curtain that reached the sky in front of Zhang Yi. King Arthur's lance hit the light curtain, and he felt like he had hit a mountain made of steel. The more ferocious the force of the charge, the greater the force that will rebound upon him. The energy shield wall that had already materialized blocked his attack completely. King Arthur could hardly hold the spear. His eyes were bloodshot. Impossible. How could my attack be ineffective? He thrust his spear with all his might, trying to break through this barrier and defeat Zhang Yi. But all he heard was a crack, sound, and the tip of his lance shattered. What? King Arthur didn't dare to see what he saw. Zhang Yi, who was covered in red and looked like a devil, could only be seen by the pair of dark eyes under the rabies helmet. Your turn is over. The energy exploded, and King Arthur was completely blown away. His lance shattered, and the horse under him dissipated in the wind. King Arthur paddled across the sea, causing huge waves. When he stopped, he was in a mess. Zhang Yi raised the scarlet magic knife with both hands, and he still felt pain in his heart. It made me consume an energy crystal. Damn it, this thing can't be manufactured now. Well, then don't waste it. I'll just deal with you in one go. Zhang Yi turned his head to look at King Arthur, with a strong sense of oppression in his eyes. Your turn is completely over. Now, it's my turn. He didn't even bother to ask King Arthur whether he would surrender or not. What a joke. Zhang Yi never wastes a grain of rice. The energy crystal has been used, and if he doesn't continue fighting, the power will be wasted. Why not take this opportunity to give King Arthur a good beating? King Arthur stood up quickly. He stared at Zhang Yi, who was covered in red, and felt a little trembling in his heart. He was also seriously injured at this time, all because of the recoil of his own strength when he was attacking. But King Arthur was unwilling to admit that he had lost. It's just a transition from offense to defense. It's my turn to defend now. Come on, Chaos. Let me see how powerful you are. The scabbard in King Arthur's hand was no longer there. Like his sword, the scabbard is just a form. He used himself as the scabbard, and the scabbard of the king attached to his body, preventing the wearer from shedding blood. Good. Zhang Yi really wanted to give him a thumbs up for his quality. He held the magic knife in both hands and rushed straight towards King Arthur the next moment. Simple and unpretentious, he just chopped down with a sword. The sky is filled with red light and murderous intent. King Arthur's heart was pounding, but he still held his chest high and used the scabbard of the king's sword to block the attack in front of him. The magic knife fell straight down and hit his confident defense. Crack. One could clearly hear the sound of his defense being shattered, and then his defense was torn into pieces like candy wrapper, and the magic knife chopped down on his head. King Arthur's pupils shrank suddenly. This power was beyond his imagination. At least reached the level of Black Bishop. Impossible, absolutely impossible. He couldn't believe that Zhang Yi could burst out such power in an instant. In an instant, many things flashed through his mind, but Zhang Yi's sword would not stop. At the critical moment, he condensed the holy sword again and raised his backhand to block the attack of the magic knife. Clang! The swords collided, and the shock waves swept out with the two of them as the center, layer upon layer, surging. The sea was roaring, and the huge waves rose up and then fell heavily. King Arthur felt his arms lose sensation in an instant, and he was thrown out violently. Puff. After he landed on the ground, he felt a fishy and sweet feeling surge in his chest, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Zhang Yi walked towards him quickly with a knife in hand. Arthur, do you want to keep fighting? Looking at Zhang Yi's murderous eyes and the terrifying magic knife in his hand, King Arthur said unwillingly, "This power does not belong to you." Chaos. He stared at Zhang Yi. What did you get from Chernobyl? Something else must have happened after we left, right? He has gained many benefits from the secret realm of underground civilization. Therefore, he understood that if Zhang Yi had not obtained the treasure from behind the light gate, he would never have been able to achieve this level today. A month ago, once Zhang Yi's spatial ability was sealed, even a black chariot-level alien would have a chance to defeat him. What could cause such a drastic change in a person in just 1 month? It must have been some kind of adventure. King Arthur was no fool. The toughness of the armor and the sharpness of the magic sword are simply not something that any civilization in the human world today can create. Zhang Yi smiled coldly. You seem to have too many questions. I just ask you, do you admit defeat? King Arthur stood up and the sword in his hand took shape again. But this is not your power. His eyes were defiant, and he was very unconvinced. You just rely on the power of your weapons. Zhang Yi sneered and said sarcastically, but didn't you also use the power of the conch to seal my spatial power? King Arthur clenched the sword in his hand. He had no way to refute this sentence. Everyone knows that Chaos is an alien with the attributes of time and space, and his most important means of fighting is the power of space. Even without the power of space, he was still able to defeat King Arthur. What if he used the power of space? It is even more unimaginable. Zhang Yi said, I'm sorry, I don't have the time to waste with you now. He flipped the magic knife in his hand. One last move. I will make you admit defeat with conviction. In Zhang Yi's left eye, the pointer of the old-fashioned pendulum swung slowly. The pointer that symbolizes the minute hand has turned. At this moment, the world stood still relative to Zhang Yi. The sky was dark for a moment, just a moment, but it was enough for Zhang Yi to pour out the last power of the red energy crystal. King Arthur didn't know what happened. He just suddenly felt a chill in his body. Crack, crack. The sound of shattering was heard. At some point, Zhang Yi disappeared from his sight and slowly walked forward behind him. He is putting away the knife. King Arthur looked down and saw that his combat uniform, which was made by Britannia's most advanced research institute, had broken into dozens of pieces and was floating into the ocean. A trickle of blood emerged from his bronze chest, and he felt a pain in his chest, with blood gushing out. This knife could pierce his skin, penetrate his heart, and shatter all his internal organs. The battle has ended here, and the winner is clear. King Arthur touched his chest. The blood was so real. There is no doubt that he lost. He was a little bit incredulous at first, but soon his eyes became more open. Hun Dun, you're amazing, he exclaimed, turning around and looking at Zhang Yi. I thought I was well prepared, but you've evolved faster than I did. Zhang Yi did not deny this. If the time had been advanced a few months, Zhang Yi would have had no way of defeating King Arthur with his preparation. But now he has improved a lot overall. Are you still unwilling to give up? Zhang Yi asked. King Arthur touched his nose. Although his upper body was naked, for an enhanced mutant, this temperature was nothing. I have to admit defeat. I have nothing more to say now. You are right. Losing is losing, no matter what the reason is. What he said was correct, but Zhang Yi also felt that King Arthur was not completely convinced in his heart. Because King Arthur felt that Zhang Yi was able to defeat him 90% because of this armor. Zhang Yi remained silent. The battle was over, and it wasn't a matter of life or death. He just said to King Arthur, By the way, let me remind you. King Arthur looked at Zhang Yi. Whatever you say, you are the winner now. Whatever the winner says is right. Zhang Yi pointed to the ground. The sea surface was as smooth as a mirror, without any fluctuations. The area that your conch horn can affect is limited. He put away the rabies helmet on his head, revealing his handsome face with a playful smile on his face. King Arthur was stunned for a moment, then shook his head helplessly. So, you've already discovered it. This time, King Arthur was completely convinced of defeat. Zhang Yi had long discovered that the space blocked by the conch horn was limited. In other words, he was still playing a close combat sword game with King Arthur just to test his own close combat skills. In fact, he could have escaped from the influence of the conch horn long ago and summoned his invincible defense, Senluo Wanxiang. I can be sure of it now, Chaos. King Arthur gave Zhang Yi a mysterious look and said with a smile, Now, he can be sure that the Chernobyl incident was not, as Zhang Yi said. A month passed. Yichigel still did not show up, but Zhang Yi became the final winner. With King Arthur's intelligence and keen insight, he probably knew who had obtained the final treasure left by the Aihen tribe. But he didn't say it out loud because it was really a great thing. There is no need for either human society as a whole or the country of Britannia to worry about the possible dangers. The human world has lost a terrible enemy and gained a powerful friend. How is it not a good thing? Zhang Yi ignored King Arthur. It is only a matter of time before this matter is exposed, but he now has enough strength to protect himself and his family. Anyone who dares to provoke him can just give it a try. On the Elizabeth, the members of the Knights of the Round Table witnessed King Arthur being defeated by Zhang Yi, and each of them had a look of disbelief on their face. Their king was defeated? The arrogant and invincible King Arthur actually lost to another powerful human being in a fair one-on-one battle. The faith in their hearts was shattered, and several people's eyes were dull, thinking they were dreaming. How could this happen? This shouldn't be like this. A Gugwiwen muttered to himself. Golden Lion Galahad walked behind Merlin and asked in confusion, Sir Merlin, Didn't you swear before that you were fully prepared and King Arthur could not lose? Merlin squinted and could not see his eyes clearly. But he also fell into a long silence. Later, he slowly opened his mouth and said, I didn't expect that his strength would become so strong. What did he get after that time behind the light gate? He had personally fought with Zhang Yi in the trial level after the light gate. Deprivation of divine authority allowed him to replicate Zhang Yi's abilities, and the two had actually fought each other. He knew Zhang Yi's abilities very well. But looking at Zhang Yi now, he is obviously much stronger than he was back then. Demon armor, black magic sword, and close combat ability that is obviously stronger than before. And the ability to end a battle in an instant. No, this is not the scariest thing. The most terrifying thing is that even though the battle is over, Zhang Yi still gives people a feeling of ease. He hasn't even used his full strength yet. Merlin suddenly opened his eyes, and the light in his deep pupils shook violently. He guessed a possibility, an extremely terrifying possibility. What if the final winner was not Ichigo, but him? At the end of the story, no one actually saw Ichigo obtain the inheritance of the Aihen people. These are all said by Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin. Since there is no evidence, no one else can doubt it. But why are the final winners not Zhang Yi and Yang Xinxin? Although no one knew where Ichigo ended up going, after the battle that day, people saw 4 angels of light fighting with the dark demon, and finally they disappeared together at the end of the sky. Perhaps what the mechanical civilization has been pursuing has disappeared. Merlin stared at the screen and saw that Zhang Yi and King Arthur had already shaken hands and made peace. This was just a fair duel. Both of them kept their promises. There was no life and death fight, and they were willing to accept defeat. Although the battle between the two ended, fierce fighting was still going on in the other 3 battlefields. King Arthur crossed his arms and his bare upper body looked very strong. I have nothing to say about losing to you this time, but I have a question. Zhang Yi turned his head and looked at him. Oh. King Arthur smiled and said, if I don't use the conch horn and you don't use this armor, can you still win so easily? Zhang Yi laughed in silence. You will lose faster. King Arthur shrugged without comment. Although he lost this time, he doesn't think he will always lose to Zhang Yi. Soon, he will lead his Knights of the Round Table and head towards the 3rd secret realm deeper in Atlantis. The Aihen people, favored by the Creator, are the 2nd generation of ancient creatures, and their civilization is certainly powerful. But it does not mean that latecomers are necessarily weaker than them. King Arthur will always pursue power and evolve. His enemy was not Zhang Yi, but a more powerful and terrifying existence. Liang Yu's battle with Lancelot was far more dangerous than that between Zhang Yi and King Arthur. The strength of Zhang Yi and King Arthur has reached the top level of the human race in the world. They have strong control over their own strength and can even stop in time to decide the outcome with 3 moves against 3 moves. But Liang Yu and Lancelot are both born war maniacs. One is a martial arts fanatic who has practiced traditional martial arts for more than 20 years. After entering the realm of unity between man and nature, he has no other intention but to defeat his opponent. So when she attacks, she only thinks about how to defeat her opponent and doesn't consider holding back. Because killing is the surest way to defeat. Lancelot was arrogant and always looked down upon other people around Zhang Yi. Now, Liang Yu's martial arts pushed him to the limit, and he was even really angry. The 2 men fought in the air. Lancelot used the fallen ashes as a weapon, continuously releasing black flames from his sword to slash. The black flames that broke through the air were like a slanting moon cutting through the sky, and they were as densely packed as a storm trying to block all of Liang Yu's paths. In terms of swordsmanship, he was far behind countless grandmasters. The power of his supernatural powers was the only area where he was ahead of Liang Yu. Liang Yu naturally didn't want to give him this opportunity, so he kept rushing forward, blocking the black flame attacks with his sword in his hand, while trying to close the distance. Lancelot fought with ease, and after some probing, he had already seen Liang Yu's weakness. The coverage range of your sword energy is too small. As long as it is not within 500 meters around you, the strength of your sword energy will be greatly weakened, and it can't even break my body protection black flame. As long as I don't let you get close, what can you use to fight me? He said sarcastically while waving the sword in his right hand quickly. The black flames poured out in the sky like a torrential rain, and the space in front of him was dyed black. The flames completely enveloped the space in front of Liang Yu like a storm. The dense and countless black flame sword shadows are dazzling. Faced with such an intensive attack, Liang Yu was not afraid at all. Her sword was faster and could certainly block such an attack. With a flip of the wrist, the advantages of Han Bamianjian's lightness and speed were fully utilized. Tianyuan, with the body as the center and the battlefield as the chessboard, Liang Yu stands in the Tianyuan position, and the sword points to any place within a radius of 500 meters and can be cut instantly. In the blink of an eye, sword shadows were already piercing out from the sky. Dang, 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 dang. The sword light flashed on the sea like a glare, and Lancelot's sword shadows were defeated one by her. But Liang Yu did not relax. Lancelot's ability index is higher than hers. He only needs to continue to attack with long-range attacks, and sooner or later he will exhaust Liang Yu's strength and spirit. So Liang Yu must find a way to get close to him. After finishing her round of attack, she leaned over and rushed towards Lancelot like a cheetah. Lancelot had already suffered a great loss. How could he dare to fight Liang Yu in close combat? Without any hesitation, he stabbed the sword in his hand into the sea below. The supernatural power exploded instantly, and the sea surged. Boom! 100-meter-high wall suddenly emerged from the sea and rushed towards Liang Yu. Liang Yu frowned and swung the sword in his hand forward.
Swish!
The black sword shadow was like the sky falling down, cutting through the sky and crashing into the sea wolf. With just one sword, the huge wave was neatly cut in the middle and collapsed to both sides. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.